Hi, y'all. We are back with me, eight-time figure Olympia champion, and my coach.
Damian Segovi, hello.
We have a special guest today on Cylence Unlocked. And your name is what, my dear?
Kristen Blair.
Kristen Blair. Oh, see, I know her maiden name. I was going to say the wrong name. But we're here, and we're going to go a very educational session today, y'all. We still have so many questions we have not gone over and gotten to from our Q&A. So we're going to go into what's this like for my mamas, my entrepreneurs, and all those things like that, and tying that into motherhood. And then we're going to go over overall health and wellness and how you can kind of prepare yourself to be good on and off the court, the stage, all those things in all phases of life, so that you're able to show up your best self and be your healthiest self, and no matter what that looks like. So we're going to talk to Kristen a lot about these topics, and we're going to get ready to rock and roll. So Kristen, give us your credentials, girl. Tell us why are we talking to you?
Yes, ma'am. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Kristen. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner since 2011. My background actually, so as a nurse practitioner, I have 2 master's degrees. I have an acute care nurse practitioner and also a family nurse practitioner. So just old fancy. Anyways, my background is actually conventional Western medicine. I actually was in cardiology for, 13 years. And kind of broke out of the Western medicine and just knew that there was so much more to medicine than just what we do in a hospital, from hormones to thyroid to gut to adrenal. So long story short of it, started studying it probably 20, maybe 18. Was going to open up a clinic in 2019, didn't ever work out. Long story short, opened up my own wellness clinic in 2023. So we've been open a year and a half, and it's been going great. I now have left the hospital. I work 1 day a month, but I still do that for my acute care stuff, but left the hospital and now do this full time. And I love it. So.
And for those of you who don't know, I work with Kristen for all my blood work, health stuff. I originally went to Kristen my very last season, and I was like, girl, just make sure I can have babies. That was the whole reason I was going to her. And she went to go check everything else. I was like, girl, I ain't asked you to check all that. I asked you to check, can I have kids? But I'm glad she did, because we found out, like, okay, this is low, this is high. Kind of were able to course correct and make sure that I'm able to live the life that I want to live. And that's probably why my retirement has been so good. But it was pivotal to know what I'm actually deficient in, instead of just taking supplements and just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. Like, we did the blood work to make sure that I was able to get A, B, C, and D. And I don't go to Kristen. So for the people who are out of town, I've sent a lot of clients her way in terms of, you don't have to be in the state to get the work done. She can just read your labs and tell you what needs to be done. And that's going to be a huge thing. But this is why it ties in, because I wanted to give y'all, anytime I give y'all information, I want to give it to people who need it, one, but from people who are actually in that field. So when we talk about motherhood and things like that, I can't speak on motherhood. I can only say hypothetically what I would do. But that's why we have Kristen here to talk about what it's like opening your own business, being a new mom, going away from the sport, coming back to the sport, and kind of pulling all that together and what that looks like. So can you talk about, for my moms out there, well, one, let's even go through your history of competition and why you decided to step away and what that looked like.
Yeah. So I've been into bodybuilding. I got my pro card in 2021. I've been working with Cyd for my posing from day one. Actually would go and train with Cyd and she would kick my ass. It was amazing. So anyways, 2021 went pro. Before that, I did CrossFit, drank that Kool-Aid for a little while, did some Olympic weightlifting, actually competed on Olympic weightlifting scale on a national level. I wasn't the best, just to be honest, but it was fun. I had a good time and learned a lot. So then decided to really dive into bodybuilding. And so, so that was I started bodybuilding in 2018 or 19, went pro in 2021, and then got married, had a baby. So she's now a little over 2. Her name's Skylar. And so after the baby, I honestly was like, I don't know, like, we'll just see if I'm going to compete again, because then guess what? My business opened up. So it was kind of like, okay, we'll see. I really knew after my baby, my goal initially was, okay, I'm going to compete on a pro level 1 year after Skylar was born. Well, I ended up having to have a C-section, which was very unplanned. I was the person, I went to pelvic physical therapy, huge fan of pelvic PT for my females that are especially athletes that know that they're going to have a baby and they want to compete later on. Pelvic physical therapy was amazing. Highly recommend it. But I did all the things. I squatted. I was literally squatting the day before I had Sky. Gained 12 pounds. Like, I wasn't, check, right? Then all of a sudden she turned in the middle of my labor and they were like, I pushed for 5 hours solid. Anyways, And so they came up to me and they're like, okay, she's turned now. We got to go to the OR and have a C-section. Well, I mean, I was like, oh gosh, that's it. Like, I'm never competing again. Like, this is a little dramatic.
Now let's pause there. Let's
Yeah.
talk about that, because a lot of people with
Yeah.
competition, because my mom was the same way when she had to have her surgeries. But when people come to competition, you're thinking like, oh, C-section, everything's getting cut apart. This won't look right on stage. Kind of talk through that mentality of, so their moms can kind of understand where
Yeah.
you're coming from with that.
Yeah, you guys, honestly, I remember doing glute bridges or something, and it was I was like, I will never be able to do this again. Like the fact that a barbell or some type of thing is going to go over my C-section scar. I remember literally being in tears and be like, I'll never be able to do this again. I'll be honest, getting on stage, I just finished the Tampa Pro. You wouldn't even know I had a C-section. It is
Told you.
No, it is. There is nothing there. So yeah, I think that if that's what you want to do, it is very feasible, 100%. I mean, you have to do your part, but I never once. There's no ifs. There's no like, oh, I'm not going to compete. I just knew this is what I wanted to do, so I did everything I needed to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you did the C-section, okay, so we stepped away from stage. We had Sky.
Yeah.
What did the post pregnancy look like for you? Like, how many times were you going to physical therapy? How did that all work out? So people can kind of get a guideline of, this is what I should be doing.
Yeah. So I started pelvic PT. I was only 12 weeks pregnant. And what's funny, speaking of conventional medicine, my initial doctor was like, because I said, hey, I want to go to pelvic PT. They had to have a referral. And so I was like, I want to go to pelvic PT. And he looked at me and he was like, why? And he was like, do you have urinary, incontinence or anything? You're only 12 weeks pregnant. I was like, no, but this is what I want to do for my ultimate goals, right? And honestly, he wouldn't even write me the referral. So I ended up like leaving him. I found another doc who was just more open to other things that are not textbook. And I started pelvic PT at 12 weeks. And then, programming changed a little bit, of course, as I got bigger and bigger. And then postpartum, after my C-section, I think I did pelvic PT for about 3 months. And then she released me. Yeah. She was like, you're good. Yeah. And
now with the
diastasis.
C-section, oh, go ahead. Yes, definitely talk on that, because that's big in post competition.
So I was going to say, with diastasis, which is just, your abdomen just kind of like splitting that little, so that is definitely a possibility for sure, especially with a C-section, because you're literally cutting through every layer that there is. I think there's 7 layers, I want to say. But anyways, so, but now, back on stage, it's pretty much where it was before. But like I said, I really think that doing the right things in pelvic PT are huge.
Have you seen people have issues, like ladies coming to you kind of concerned about their C-sections and like their abs having that separation? Have you seen that like as a common thing, especially like your moms?
Not separation so much, but lower abdominals not being able to like properly vacuum. There's like a really big disconnect from like the belly button down, so they can vacuum belly button up, but that lower part they just don't necessarily have nerve filling in there, so they have a really hard time pulling that in. So I don't know much about pelvic PT. So would that be something that would help if somebody were to do that during a pregnancy? Like what exactly is that? Because I've never heard of that. So
it's a physical therapist. So it's a doctorate degree, but they specialize in the pelvic floor. So it is. I'll be honest. When I went, I was like, we're gonna see how this goes. But and some of the things she did, I was like, I don't know. But anyways, so they essentially so for me, they say that after you have a baby, like you want to make sure you're doing all these movements to make sure everything's really strong. Well, actually for me, my stuff was too strong because of my background. So she had to make me realize it was more mind muscle connection of those deep, like transverse, abdominals. And feeling those and making sure those things were really strong versus even more than aesthetic thing. I'm talking about those deep muscles. So she just really she goes in there and it's like you're going to the GYN doctor. There's a hand up areas that you don't really want. It's very surprised. But so they just go in there and just they know exactly okay, you're too tight or, you have urinary incontinence, and they just give you, it's just like a physical therapist. They give you movement homework, essentially. You come up with a program and they give you homework. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, so we did that 3 months post pregnancy, and then you were already training back to regular, all that stuff. How did that look?
Yeah, I think I went and trained with you. I want to say,
yeah.
I don't think I was that long. I was like, okay, Sid, don't kill me. I started training. So pelvic PT after C-section, I think I was 2 weeks. I couldn't really do much as far as I would walk, but like
Mm-hmm.
as far as like really doing, and then I followed her program, and it started with really simple things using a band, no weights,
Mm-hmm.
body
Mm-hmm.
weight, and then slowly just kind of went up. And then I think too, the biggest word too, I would say, is just having grace with yourself, because we all want to like do it now. You know what I mean? I remember like my pelvic
Snap back.
PT. Yeah. My physical
Mm-hmm.
therapist was like, Kristen, I know how you are, and I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to slow things down. Like, you're not going to be able to just jump right into this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I went a couple months. I was pretty much back up to, now I wasn't hip thrusting, 400 pounds or anything crazy like that.
Right.
But I felt, and then even today, 2 years later, I do feel like there's certain ab movements that just feel weird, like V-ups, for example. Like,
Okay.
so I kind of tailor. I don't do V-ups. There's just certain things I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's here too. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so then we went from, we had Sky, we're already doing our preparation, and then you open this business. So now you're a mom and you're taking a leap of faith on yourself, trying to really go out and establish yourself as your own entity. Walk us through that process for those who want to kind of follow in those steps and just really take the leap, even if you're a mom, like you have people who support you, you don't want to let them down, but it's also like you got to still keep going for your dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I opened up, let me see, 2021. So I had Sky in 2023, 2024. So a year later, yeah.
Hmm.
So that process and just opening a clinic and getting all the protocols together, and I mean literally it was a huge deal. So that in itself took, we started working on this really in 2022 probably. And so in
Okay.
2024 is when we opened the doors officially. So yeah, so that was, a financial huge jump for me, because here I am working at the hospital, doing a critical care. I've had 401k, I have insurance, I have, all these things. I've done nothing. I was an ER nurse before then. So I've always worked in a hospital. So I literally
Hmm.
just said, leap of faith is just what you said. Like, I knew deep down this is what I wanted to do. And I knew
Yeah.
that if I didn't do it one day, I would look back and say, what if? And I will
Yeah.
not live my life. I will live my life like, I will look back and say, well, I tried, but I will not look
Yeah.
back and say, what if? So I just said, let's do this. And so I essentially went part-time at the hospital. My husband and I knew we kind of, took our finances and kind of stepped it down for a little while, because we knew that we were going to be taking a hit for a little while.
Yeah.
And told the hospital. And what's really funny is you see all the cardiologists tell me when I say I'm opening up a wellness clinic, they're like, what? Like, the cardiologists, these heart doctors, they don't know anything about any of this stuff, number one. So
Yeah.
that was pretty funny to say, like, have you gone crazy? Like, what are you doing? And now
Speaking
most of
of,
them see me in the clinic. Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. But speaking of that, is let's talk about the discussion between like your regular doctor blood work and functional medicine
Ooh,
blood work. Let's talk
that's
about kind of
good.
what the difference is, because I know my doctor would be like, "Oh, everything looks great," and then I came to Kristen. Kristen's like, "Well, it's not optimal." So I'm like, "I'm going for optimal." So kind of break down that in terms of like when people are getting their blood work just from a basic doctor, what that looks like and what those doctors are taught.
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference is in my clinic, I don't take insurance. Okay, so everything's cash
Mm-hmm.
paid. So when you go see a
Mm-hmm.
primary care doctor, there's rules, right? They can only spend 15 minutes with you. They have to use these diagnosis codes for billing and all this stuff. I don't do any of that. So I can spend as much time
Mm-hmm.
with you as I want to. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think too, like, you go see a primary care doctor, and according to, let's just say, LabCorp, for example, right?
Yeah.
A normal testosterone level for a female, let's just say, is anywhere from 4 to 30. Okay, well, I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you a woman with a testosterone level of 4 is going to feel horrible, right? But to them, it's normal. So I get
Right.
all the time from clients that come in, or patients that say, like, I've gone to multiple doctors. Everybody says my labs are normal. But
Mm.
and then they start feeling like it's them. I hear all the time, like, maybe I'm just crazy, or no one will listen to me, or I'm just getting older. My doctor said I'm just getting older. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
No, no, man.
Yeah.
That's not no, not allowed. So yeah, so I really look at more optimal levels, and knowing like patients feel better when their levels are at this, even though the normal level is at this. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, looking at those optimal levels and just knowing how you feel on those levels. Yeah.
And I think too, that's a good segue into HRT, because one of our people had a conversation and were questions about like when do you go that route? Like when is it to the point where you're like, all right, you know what? I may feel okay mentally, but I may not actually be okay. Or when do I say I could feel better? And when should they come to you and start down that journey?
What I've seen is, hormone shifts really start coming into play anywhere between like 30 and 55. Okay. As far as
Okay.
ages. Okay. So I see most of my clients in my clinic are 30s and 40s. And then you get into, for women, you get into menopause, average age of menopause is around 51, but perimenopause can last years. So,
Yeah.
so that's when really women, especially in my clinic, that's the majority of patients I see. And so they start feeling these things where they're not sleeping, or they have hot flashes, or they feel anxious, or brain fog. They can't remember
Mm-hmm.
things, or all of a sudden you go to the kitchen and you're like, what did I come here for? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how it started with me too, Sid. I mean, after I had Sky, I could not and I thought that, well, I had a lot of stuff on my plate, right? And that's the thing too.
Yeah.
We all give each other excuses, right? We're like our worst critic, right? So it's like, well,
Yeah.
I just opened up a clinic. I'm still working part time. I have a 1 year old. But for me personally, my brain fog was so bad, I could not remember
Yeah.
anything. And just I was super anxious, and I'm not an anxious person. I mean, coming from
Mm-hmm.
critical care, like my whole entire career has been like people dying on me, literally, and
Yeah.
I'm cool as a cucumber. It's just what I've always done.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I was feeling anxious about stuff like that, right? And my testosterone was low, 100%. And so
Mm-hmm.
once I fixed my thyroid was a little off too. Once I got these things optimized, gone. Brain fog gone within 2 weeks. It was crazy. So I think to answer your question, I think that when people start getting in that like 30 to 40s range, and you start thinking like, I can't lose weight, but my doctor tells me my labs look good, or I just feel so anxious about things, or I can't sleep, or I have hot flashes, or those are the times really it's like for men, why can't I lose this belly fat? This dad
Mm-hmm.
bod. No, that's low testosterone. Okay. So, those things, like that's when it's time to say, okay, let me go to somebody that actually does hormones and does,
Yeah.
this rather than your primary care doctor. Because they just don't. It's not in their schooling at all.
Yeah. So, D, from a coaching perspective, when you have clients that you're like, okay, she's not losing weight, this is happening, this is happening. Like, do you ask them questions? I already know the answers. Do you ask them questions like, okay, how are you feeling? What's going on in life, et cetera, et cetera? And at what point are you like, listen, you need to go see somebody to get your blood work done or something like that? How does that work from a coaching perspective?
I mean, from the like jump when I first meet them, I usually ask them when was their last blood work done. Especially if
Mm-hmm.
they've done previous competitions, and then I usually ask them to get it reran. I like twice a year, like every 6 months. Ideally, obviously, if they're doing multiple shows, then probably a little more than that, especially if they're having a thyroid issue and it's being treated. It tends to shift and like down regulate really fast. So she knows, Kristen would know, you're gonna have to like stay on top of it, like every 8 weeks to make sure there's not a big shift. But usually, if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's really tired, they're having a hard time losing weight in the past, they normally don't have a hard time. Like she's saying, brain fog, they're anxious. That's usually those signs that something's going on. Usually, as a coach, you can kind of tell too. A lot of times, the way their body tends to hold water, say where they start to
Mm-hmm.
hold body fat, you can tell they're having some hormonal imbalances. So usually, it's a good idea to get it checked, because then it just alleviates a lot of frustration on their end and my end. So.
And then, usually in that case, would you just pull them from said show if they were getting ready for a show, or do you just kind of be
Yeah.
like, okay, if it's okay?
Yeah, I prefer, just because I found that and Kristen, you might disagree with this, but I found if you're trying to treat somebody and they're in a low caloric state and they're doing a lot of cardio, the body tends to fight it a lot more. So for me,
Mm-hmm.
I usually say, hey, like, what you're going to spend time and money trying to fix yourself, but your body's going to it's going to take a
Oh,
lot longer and it's not going to work as well. So in my opinion, let's shut it down. Let's get you fixed and recalibrate and do, whatever's next on the calendar when you start to balance out.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. I actually had a conversation with a lady this week. She's done multiple shows back to back, and I'm like, your hormones are screaming. Like her ferritin
Mm-hmm.
levels are out the roof. Anyways, and I finally just said like, this is not the time. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
So when they're getting blood work, people always ask like, okay, what does this person do? Like, what kind of panels or whatever that even means. I just know I tell Kristen, this is what I need checked, and she
Yeah,
just checks everything and she adds stuff.
yeah.
So what is the base level things that should be checked when it comes to potentially going on a hormone replacement therapy, but also just as a person, like you need to know where these levels are, period, no matter what you're doing.
So, for my basic panels for females, let's talk about that first. I check, so a lot of clinics will check serum cortisol levels. I do not. I think cortisol fluctuates throughout the day, depending on the time of day. So, depending on what time we're getting our blood drawn, depends on what time our cortisol, or what our cortisol is going to be at that point. And let's just say you have afternoon crash and I'm checking your cortisol at 9 a.m. Well, that's not telling me anything what's happening in the afternoon, right? So I check DHEA, which is a precursor hormone to cortisol. I check that on everybody, especially my athletes, and work with a lot of athletes. So DHEA levels, estrogen. So when you're talking about sex hormones, we're talking about estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Cortisol, we're talking about DHEA. And then two, if DHEA, and this is what we did with Sid too, if DHEA levels are really high or really low, and I try to treat that depending on the patient, depending on their symptoms and their goals. If I try to treat that with whatever modality that is, whatever supplement those are, and we still don't get anywhere, then I do saliva cortisol. And that literally checks AM cortisol, mid-morning, afternoon, and night cortisol. So then I can actually see what is your diurnal pattern throughout the day and how it fluctuates, and adjust according to that. So I don't do that on everybody. I do that on select people if I feel like it's needed. And then thyroid.
Do you want to tell my story while you're doing that?
Yeah. So Sid's cortisol or DHEA levels, after the Olympia, that pre-Olympia, they were pretty good. Post-Olympia, they just like, we're like, what just happened? Do you mind, Sid, if I tell? Are you okay with the traveling?
Well, you do the spit test portion about getting my adrenals.
I was like, what's going on? So she had just been traveling a lot, training program had a little change. So I ended up sending out her cortisol test. We did a saliva test, and it was pretty significant. There's stages of adrenal fatigue, and I don't mean to go into that, but Sid was completely burned out, like done. And so,
but mind you, the good part is I was chilling. As I tell people, I can't be stressed because I literally could not be stressed.
Yeah, no, this is Sid. I'm like, Sid, how are you feeling? She's like, I'm good. I'm like,
I'm great.
I'm looking at this piece of paper like. So anyway, so we had to do some things and come down in training a little bit, come down in cardio, and she's did amazing. And now they're back up. So yeah, adrenals are super important. Thyroid, Damian touched on that. Thyroid's so important too. And that's huge too, is optimal. A lot of a lot of primary care doctors will just check TSH and T4. I want to know what your T3 level is. I want to make sure. I diagnose Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid disorder, at least once a week, especially in females, very common. So like even that, like just making sure thyroid's optimal. And then your basic markers, we check ferritin, which is an inflammation marker. It's also an iron storing protein, but long story short, inflammation markers. We check CBC and CMP, which is just your basic hemoglobin, hematocrit, liver, kidneys, electrolytes, glucose, those things. We check lipids on if you're fasted, as long as you're fasted. And then what else? We check vitamin D, B12. Really. And for guys, we also check estrogen levels, super important for guys too, especially if you're on testosterone. Making sure you're not converting to estrogen. That's really important. What else? We check a whole plethora of things.
Yeah. So it's important for y'all to kind of think about those things when you're getting the paperwork from your doctor. Make sure you have everything that you need to kind of get a well-rounded view of what you need to do. And if you're not getting it, I would suggest either way. Like I still get blood work done at my doctor. I just get it because I'm told to do it because they need their little money or whatever. But I get my main blood work that I actually pay attention to with Kristen, so I know I'm getting everything I need to get looked at.
Yeah. Very important too. I think too, just talking about hormones too, there are these myths back in, what year was that? 2002, I want to say. The Women's Health Initiative trial was this huge trial that went on about hormones. And it led to like all these, everybody was scared of hormone replacement therapy. Well, number one, since then it's all been debunked because number one, most of the women in that study were age 63. Well, I just said most women's hormone dysfunctions are 30 to 55. So now all of a sudden we have this trial where women are 63 years old on average, and it was synthetic hormones. So that's important to know. Like, so for hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical hormones, the only way, that's the only thing I do. That's it. And it's just it's those that are bioidentical that are more made up for your body. Okay. So I think of it like a key that actually fits into a lock versus a synthetic hormone that tries to fit into the lock but doesn't. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So yeah,
Yes.
so hormones are not bad, and I actually since then they've really been debunked. And hormones are actually super. They're cardioprotective. Estrogen's super
Mm-hmm.
important for our heart, for our
Mm-hmm.
bones, for our brain. I mean, all these things are. It's really important. So they do not cause cancer. I would say I literally have that discussion probably once a week as well. So that's really important to know for hormones as well. So yeah, and
Now, synthetic versus the bio. So I
yeah,
got the concept of that. Now, when you're doing your HRT, does it mean that you can never stop it? Because I feel like if you stopped it, then everything goes down. So for the rest of your life, once you start, you got to just keep up with it.
no, you're right. You're supplementing things that you had at one point in time, just like you're supplementing vitamin D or
Yeah.
B12, or it's a supplement.
Yeah.
You're supplementing. So yeah, as soon as you stop, your levels are going back down to normal. I always kind of joke with people. I'm like, I will have hormones in my body until the day I'm in the ground. Like, just
Yeah.
because I know how I feel off of them and I know I feel on them,
Yeah.
So for me, it's a no brainer. But yeah, you're right. It's a once you're in type of thing
Okay,
for
because
sure.
that's been a talk too. I've seen a lot of people kind of talking about like the same issue of women not understanding that you don't have to suffer, that you can have another way out for you to feel better and still be okay. But that I saw a couple of doctors talking about that on Instagram of just basically like when the women go in to try to get testosterone, they got to pay an arm and a leg when men only pay like $6 7 or like 99 cents or whatever the hell it was. And
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting conversation of the importance of when you do need to make that step. If you feel like it's important for you, that you should have the support to do so. But it's good that you have a clinic that is also geared towards making sure that women are taken care of, which a lot of people are not.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I that's another myth I would like to just debunk right off the bat because I get a lot of women it's like, oh, I don't know if I start on testosterone, am I going to turn into a man? And that's
Mhm.
not the case. If you're doing it under controlled, medical supervision where I'm checking labs every 10 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Um, Literally, patients have any issues, they call my office. So I will say, like, women for testosterone with women, like, it is a game changer if you need it, and you're not going to turn into a guy. You're not. Your voice is not going to deep. You're not going to, grow things in places you don't want.
Yeah.
It's just it's a very misunderstood hormone for women. And I get a lot of
Yeah.
patients that come in and they go see their doctor and they got put on estrogen and progesterone, but no testosterone and I think it's just because people are scared of it. They don't
Yeah.
understand it and, they're scared of it. Well, and those women that are put on estrogen and progesterone and not testosterone, in my opinion, it's a balance. You have to have all three. They
Yeah.
all three work together. And so if you have two and you don't have the other one, then you're just missing out on a lot of things that you could feel better. And, just so it's about having all three. It's super important.
Very important.
Yeah.
Now, also know at her clinic, she does IV drips. Kind of talk about the other things you do at the clinic too.
Yeah. So we do a lot of weight loss, huge into peptides. That is my thing.
That's
I
our
love
next
them.
conversation coming up.
Yeah, do a lot of weight loss, peptides, and then yeah, we do IVs. So anybody that I actually support a lot of like athletic events like powerlifting, and I'll go and
Mhm.
start IVs on athletes and stuff beforehand. And then we
Mhm.
also are getting into stem cells. This word is coming around. That's probably
Okay.
another topic for another day, but I'm using a
Yeah.
lot of stem cells for joints for athletes, shoulders, knees, stuff like that. It's pretty cool stuff that's coming out. So, but yeah, peptides are, I know we want to talk about peptides. So,
Yes,
peptides,
we are. We're
love
going to
me
jump
some
into it
peptides.
now.
I love it. Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
So with the peptide conversation, it's a new hot topic. We were talking
Yeah.
about it on the last podcast. First of all, let's break down what they are, what the uses are, how many there are, and the concept. We'll go to the concept of is it natural versus is it not. So let's start with kind
Okay.
of just what they are overarchingly.
Okay. So essentially, when we talk about peptides, all they are short chains of amino acids. Okay. So amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in these amino acids, essentially, they all play certain roles, and whether it's the processes and the just the functions of our body. So I think of it like a message. Like each one has a
Okay.
signaling message to go do something. Okay. So
Okay.
like for me and the pretty much there's so many peptides. I mean, you can literally go on and on from cognitive function to growth hormone to weight loss to the ones that I use in my clinic just because of my clientele, my patients. Or just go into like the weight loss medicines, and everybody's heard these hot topics of semaglutide and trizepatide and all these weight loss ones. So I do a lot of that. And then not necessarily for athletes sometimes, but that's more so patients that really have like pre-diabetic PCOS. They're great for those are great for PCOS patients. The growth hormone peptides, and we kind of break this down in just a minute. And then also healing peptides. So I use a lot of that BBC 157, TB 500, and we can kind of go into that. So just think of protein as like a signaling message that goes and does something. And each one has a very individual message to whatever the purpose you're using it for. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep. So then, so we're getting a breakdown of what they are. So they're amino acids. So now, scientifically, let's nerd out a little bit. What would be the difference between like a supplemental branch chain amino acid and this is amino acid if they're both amino acids? What's the difference? I'm assuming it kind of goes like to a deeper cellular level or something like that.
Yeah, so these are just a shorter chain of amino acids. So if you get a long chain of amino acid, that's a protein, right? So these are just shorter chain amino acids that most of them are injectable. Okay, so that's important. So not all of them, but majority of them are injectable amino acids. And most of them, so with these, they're actually going to do a certain goal. And that goal just depends on the patient. So let's say you're like, hey, Kristen, I really would like to lose 20 pounds. Cool. Let's talk about that. What is your goal in that 20 pounds? Are you an athlete? Okay. Are you diabetic? There's so many things that play a role into that. But in the decision for me as a provider to say, like, which peptide are we going to use for you? It really depends on what that goal is. So, like, if somebody comes to me and they're wanting to just lose some visceral fat, they want help with sleep, they want something to help with their skin, then I'm going to go into the growth hormone peptides. Okay, we kind of go into that. Or if somebody has PCOS and they just want to lose, they're insulin resistant and they want to lose, 15 pounds to help reset insulin and those type of things. I'm going to go into like trizepatide or semaglutide. So it really just depends on the person.
Okay. Now, D, from since the peptide talk is deep within the bodybuilding industry now, have you seen like an uptick in usage, or do you feel like it's a good thing? Do you feel like it's a bad thing? How do you feel about like the whole peptide conversation when it comes to bodybuilding?
Yeah, man, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing per se. From what I've seen, a lot of them are a lot less side effects, excuse me, and seem to be, in quotations, healthier than obviously taking anabolic. So I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing per se. I do think there are so many coming out so fast that probably don't have a lot of long-term research. Whether that's good, whether that's bad or not, I don't know. It's most likely just a waste of money. So with limited knowledge I know about peptide, there's only a few that I usually feel comfortable letting athletes know that I'm okay with them taking. So
I was going to say that's a good point too, because peptides are not FDA approved. I mean, they're not. So it's really off-label uses only. So anytime I'm using this, I tell patients like these are not FDA. Like I'm using the off-label for X, Y, or Z.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
and
what are the side effects, if any?
What now?
I said, what are the side effects, if any?
Well, let's talk about like the various categories, and because that'll be a little bit more specific to which one we're talking about. So let's just talk about the weight loss meds. Okay, those are the GLP ones that is all over social media right now. So these essentially just slow down the gut, right? They slow down the gut, so therefore you're not as hungry. Okay, like I said, I get all the time people come in the clinic. They're like, I saw this medicine on TikTok and I would like to try it. I'm like, okay, cool. Are you working out? How's your diet?
Yeah.
How's your sleep? How's your stress? Right?
Yeah.
So for me, I really pride myself on, I try not to be, I don't want to be a Band-Aid. I don't want to just give you this peptide and say, all right, peace. I hope you lose 20 pounds. Goodbye. You got to do your part, number one. And these are not for everybody. I mean, they have some side effects. The GLPs can cause nausea, heartburn, diarrhea, constipation. So let's say somebody comes in with significant constipation. I don't want to put them on this because what if that makes it worse and they can develop all types of issues. So they're just not for everybody. And I think my biggest thing when people come in, because I get it all the time, people want it fast, right? We live in a society that wants things now, right? And I say there are those patients that I had a patient last week literally looked me in the face and she said, yeah, Chris, I'm not going to work out. I was like, okay. But for I know, believe me, I struggle, internal struggle with it. But I do say most patients, when I explained how important protein is, right? How important your sleep is, how important like strength training, getting 10,000 steps a day, fiber, all these things. Once I explain to them, let's making sure your hormones are optimized. That's huge, right? Because I
Yeah.
have people come in that want these medications and their thyroid's off. Okay, well, let's first make sure your hormones are optimized, give that some time, and then come back to the clinic. Let's talk about what are you doing on your end? Are you doing all the things that
Yeah.
we just talked about? Are you doing strength training? Are now your hormones are optimized? You probably, honestly, with your hormones not optimized, you probably feel horrible, right? So
Yeah.
now we can get your hormones optimized. Then we can talk about, okay, let's use this medicine to aid you with you doing all the other things, right? Rather than just saying, I'm going to use this medicine and not do anything else. So, and I tell people it's a journey. Like any of these medicines, it is not but I want to lose 20 pounds this month. You need to go slow,
Yeah.
slow, slow. Because honestly, too, going slow, you have less side effects. So I have a lot of people that
Okay.
do it correctly and they do great. You just have to go really, really slow. So with those weight loss ones.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Pretty interesting though, and I once again, it's not usually a lot of athletes. Usually, it's other patients. Athletes don't tend to typically want GLPs, but as Damian was talking about, I don't know, Damian, do you use a lot of tesamorelin with your clients? I would say
Yeah,
tesamorelin.
epimorelin, tesamorelin. Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly have a lot of clients that use it. I don't know if you found, but it seems to, at least what I've known, athletes that have taken it, women tend to hold a lot more water on that than men. I don't know
Correct.
if you found that, especially in the
Absolutely.
midsection.
Mm.
So a lot of
Mhm.
them get really frustrated because they're taking something that they think's gonna help them look better. And yes, it might make them look better, but the girls don't like the thickness in the waistline and how much water they're
Yeah.
holding from it. So
Yeah, I would say the ones I use, just talking about, so Sid, we're talking about like these are growth hormone secretagogues is the fancy term. So essentially these peptides, so we talked about weight loss, right? These peptides are more so to increase your own growth hormone. So growth
Okay.
hormones are anti-aging hormone. Okay. So these
Okay.
essentially you take them all at night. And for me personally, I have all my patients, we do 5 nights on, 2 nights off. Okay. And the reason
Okay.
is I don't want to burn out your own growth hormone. And we only do cycles
Okay.
of these. Okay. So,
Okay.
but Damien's right. They can hold some water. So like somebody's in prep, you're not taking these, right? I'm talking about off season. We're trying to put on some lean muscle mass, trying to get rid of some visceral fat. These peptides are great, and like Damien said, epimorelin CJC 1295. That's one that I've used myself a
Mm.
million times. It's one of my favorites. Just for
Okay.
overall recovery. Skin, I have 2 patients on it just for the skin benefits of it.
Okay.
It's great. And then tesamorelin is also one I use a lot on clients too. And it's kind of like the gold of the growth hormone peptides. I've used it myself as well. Pretty cool information. Actually, before I started prep for Tampa Pro, I got on tesamorelin just the month before. I kind of wanted to play with it and see what it did because I use all the stuff on me before I use it on my patients. So
Mm-hmm.
I got on tesamorelin just in a month. My body fat, according to the in body, so according to my skeletal muscle mass and my body fat percentage, went down by 2%. And muscle mass stayed the same, and nothing else had changed.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
so I've had, and I'm actually about to start it again. So I do love tesamorelin in the off season, for sure. There's some other ones like Damian mentioned that definitely like MK677 is one you'll hear. It's the only one by mouth. And I don't use
Okay.
that, especially in my females, because it can cause some water retention, and they'll call me panicking, like, Kristen, the scale's gone
Yeah.
up 4 pounds. But I love that. I don't know too, like, so Damien, I've been using NK677, and I'll also stack that with Anavar for especially my guys. And
Mm.
just the stack of that, I've had great results with for muscle composition or increasing muscle mass and stuff. Just those two together for my guys. So I use that. So it really depends on the person, but all those are great for just feeling better. And like Damien said, the side effects are so low with the growth hormone secretagogues. I don't really see. I've had one patient that had some local reaction at the site. I had to stop. But that's really it. You just don't really get much side effects.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all take all your notes. You should have your pen and pad out by now, writing
Yeah.
all this down for those
Yeah.
who have all the questions because y'all were asking about them.
Love
Okay,
it.
so we've
Love it.
gone over the HRT, we've gone over peptides. Now let's go into your motherhood. All right,
Ooh,
for all
Sid, I
my
want to say
moms out there. Yes.
one other
Oh,
thing.
go
One
ahead.
other thing for the peptides too. The other category I use a lot of is healing peptides too. So
Oh yeah, I heard about the joint ones.
yeah, BBC 157, TB 500. So BBC 157 essentially is body protective compound. And these are great. I use these a lot of athletes for decreasing inflammation or just like injuries. You come to
Okay.
me or I've actually used them for post-surgical patients too. They're great. Like I had a guy
Okay.
had a huge C-spine fusion, anyways, Achilles tear, or just like, my shoulder's been bothering me. I don't know what I've done. BPC 157, TB 500 are great. I've used them myself as well. And they're great for that. And then the oral BPC 157 is great for gut. So people that have, gut's huge, we can even have a whole discussion on gut. But gut is huge for our hormones. And so oral BPC is just a huge, it's great for gut repair. So those are another
Okay.
category that I just wanted to mention. So
Very
yeah.
important. Now, with that same thing too, if you stop taking them, is everything repaired still, or will you start feeling the pain again?
Yeah. So most patients that I use, or even for myself, I was using on mine for my left knee was giving me, this was last off season, but my left knee was giving me some just bothering me. So I just did
Yeah.
1 month of it. And after 1 month and doing the other things too, I'm not saying like you start feeling good with a BBC and then you go in the gym and, squat 500 pounds. Well, it's probably
Yeah.
not going to heal. Right. So you have to
Yeah.
do your part
Yeah.
as well. Right. But yeah, if you do your part and use these peptides, most of my patients within a month or two, they're good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to
Yeah.
know. That's good to know for those people who want to use that. All
Yeah.
right. Now we're into motherhood. I know a
Okay.
lot of my moms, they tend to put themselves on the back burner, but in this sport, you kind of have to find like more of a balance, especially when you're running a whole entire company, being a mom, being a wife. How do you make it all together? Like, do you overtly schedule your plans? How do you lay out your schedule so that way you're having time with Skylar, able to still compete and structure all that? And then also the number one important question: what do you do with your kids during peak week? Because a lot of people get a little get a little confused about what should happen then and when it's time to be like, listen, yes, I'm a mom, but at this point, this is my time. So how does that look like for you? And what advice would you
Yeah.
give to other people?
That could be tough. I'm going to be honest. Prep this time around versus prep in 2021, where I didn't own a business and I didn't have a baby and I wasn't married and I worked 3 days a week at the hospital. Totally different. Honestly, I would say support system, huge.
Yeah.
Whether that's family, friends, spouse, whatever that looks like for you, having that, I could not have done this prep or my lifestyle I cannot do without my husband and my friends and support system, period. So having that is
Mm-hmm.
huge. But I will say you just have to have grace with yourself and you just figure it out. Whether that's for me personally, now, for example, I train at 5 a.m. most days. But let's say
Okay.
Sky wakes up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? I'm training at 9 o'clock at night. It is what it is. I mean, is it ideal? No. But do you just get it done? Yeah, you do. And so you just have to figure out what works for you. Like my husband likes to train at night, so therefore I train in the morning,
Okay.
and I think too, and something too for me, having mom guilt, like when I was training at night when I could be spending time with Sky, I was feeling bad.
Mm.
Like, because I don't
Mm.
want to ever her to ever feel like I'm putting bodybuilding or my goals and my dreams in front of her because she is
Right.
like the center of my life, right?
Right.
So for me in my head, I'm like, okay, well, if I train at 5 a.m., she's sleeping. She don't know,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just feel better about it. But is it good? Wait, do I like waking up at 4:30 a.m.? No, who does? But once again, you just get it done. So yeah, so I think it's just you have to just have there's seasons of life, and each season is going to be a little different. When she was, the first 3 months, oh man, that was tough. That was so tough, especially after having a C-section. And, I couldn't be in the gym where is my release,
Yeah.
not only from an aesthetic
Yeah.
standpoint, I'm talking about just a mental standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember looking at my husband and being like, I made the wrong decision. Can we put her back in? I don't want to do this. For real.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, they're just different seasons and you just kind of figure out, all right, this season is okay and we're just gonna do this instead, even if it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that my friends have always told me about as I like prepare for motherhood down the road is like, you can't say like, yeah, I know you're a hyper planner, but you cannot plan everything.
Oh
That
yeah.
child's gonna come in there and wreak havoc. Okay. So I think that's a good thing for
Absolutely.
the moms. Yeah. So for my hyper planners like me, it can be an adjustment. It will be an adjustment, but it's going to definitely be different.
Oh yeah. Sid, I love a list. I'll be honest. I love a list. I love checking off a list. And so, yes, that was a huge thing for me too, because I was like, I mean, literally, I'd written down once I had this baby, this is what I'm going to do, this, I'm going to do. I'm like writing it down,
That's
right?
right, girl.
And all,
Same. It's already in my phone.
like, and all of a sudden I had a C-section. It was like, oh, just throw this out the window. Like, so
Yep.
anyways, and just realizing it's okay that if your list is not exactly done the way you think it's supposed to be done, it'll still get
Yeah.
done. It just might not be what you think. Yeah. Valid. Yeah. That's so true.
Is there a way that you think that what would be helpful for the moms who do deal with that mom guilt every day and they can't really find a way out of it? Like, what would be a helpful tip for them to kind of utilize to make sure that they're not feeling, because like one thing I don't like is when moms don't take care of themselves and they're not given time to take care of themselves. I dislike that very, very much, because 9 times out of 10, the women are always bearing the brunt of the work on every single thing. And especially when you become a mom, you're most likely bearing the brunt of the work on that too. And I feel like that person should have that time and should not feel guilty for it. But hormonally, I can see why it's like, okay, listen, I could be here, I could be here, I could be doing all those things. But how do you get out of your head and understand that you need your time alone as a mom?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just figuring out like, okay, for me, I've trained in an hour and a half max. I mean, but
Okay.
I am in the gym and out. Like, there's no talking. And it's funny because a lot of the gym I go to, most of those people are my patients. So when I come in there, they want to
Okay.
talk to me and and they know my headphones in, you better leave me alone. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm here to work. Right. And so just giving some grace for yourself for that hour and 30 minutes. Like, it gives me chills, like, seriously, because that hour and a half makes you a better mom. It makes you a better
Yes, it
spouse.
does.
It makes you a better business owner. It makes you a better human, right? So just knowing that I'm doing this to be a better mom. So if you look
Mm-hmm.
at it that way versus like what I was doing initially was like, oh, I could be spending this time with Sky. Well, I could,
Mm-hmm.
but if I have my time, I'm better with Sky on those hours that I have with her, as a human and as a
Yeah.
mom. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say more just really it's like a time management thing and just saying, okay,
Mm-hmm.
for this hour and a half or whatever, how many days a week, depending on what you can do, it's
Yeah.
okay that I'm all about me. It's okay.
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference between like your clients who aren't moms and clients who are? Like, what have you found is like the biggest difference between those two?
And moms, they can handle more adversity. You know what I mean during like prep. Like
Mm.
That's good.
yeah, I mean they've been through it. You know what I mean. They've like Kristen's saying, every day something's being thrown. You know, a little wrench in the program. So they handle adversity a lot better. They seem to take you telling them things aren't necessarily going in the right direction a lot better. They're just a little bit more balanced and stable. You know.
I think too, Sid, just mentioning too, I had Sky, so I'm 42. So I had Sky at 40. So I think that's important
Let's
for
talk
just
about
people.
that. Let's talk about
Yeah,
that. Yeah, go ahead and talk
yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So I think too, I mean, honestly, I didn't think I wanted children.
Mm.
I was all about me. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, here I was, like, I want my goals, my da da da. And then Sean, one day after I went pro, I'll never forget this. After I went pro in 2021, we're sitting on a rooftop bar, we're hanging out, I'm drinking some wine, and I'm like, babe, what are your goals in life? What are your goals? Right? I'm trying to like in-depth conversation. And he's like, I want a baby. And I was like, oh,
Oh.
okay. So here we are. Okay. So anyways, so we
Yeah.
did. And I'm so thankful that I had her. I mean, she is literally the best. But, having a mom, being a mom, there is a thing about that. Like, you're over 35, you're, old, and that
Call it
stigma
geriatric
too.
pregnancy.
Yeah, and it's becoming more and more, it's normal. Like, it's okay. And I do get, especially patients are like, you had a baby at 40? Oh, and I'm like, it was on purpose.
Yes.
I'm like, it's on purpose. Um, and two, people think like, okay, well, I'm old. I'm, whatever, how old I'm having a baby. No, I mean, I had a baby at 40 and I'm in better shape now than I was before my baby. So, you know, um, no, it can be done 100%.
But do you think it comes down to the fact that you were taking care of yourself for so long prior to that? So I think a lot of people don't take into account those earlier years where you think you can go out and just do whatever and drink and smoke and do everything for
Oh yeah,
long periods of time and eat like crap for long periods of time. I think that could be a thing that also helped too with even being able to get
absolutely.
pregnant.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're very right. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, question, do you help with that realm? Like if for people like in terms of balancing hormones to where like say they couldn't have kids before, is that something that you also help with?
So we're not a fertility clinic.
Mhm.
No, so no, I can look at hormones and we can look at, what is your ovarian reserve or what is, we can look at
Okay.
certain things, making sure thyroid, I mean, that's getting pregnant, thyroid's huge. So those are
Mhm.
those things we can make sure that everything's optimal for pregnancy, but I
Mhm.
don't do like fertility. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Now for guys, I will make sure like if your plans on having a baby at some point in time, then we talk about that. I put you on things. If you're on TRT, that or testosterone replacement therapy, then I'm going to make sure you're on something to make sure you have, sperm count. So later on down the
Okay.
road, if you wanted to get pregnant, you could. That's really important.